London Tonight, now on Carlton with Kate Harding.
Good evening. Mayor Livingston has spent his first full day in America on a fact-finding mission to New York and Washington. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has been with him. Top of today's agenda, the fight against crime.
Very nice to see you. Great pleasure. Great pleasure to have you here. How are you enjoying it?
This was the moment the most famous elected mayor in the world met Britain's only elected mayor. Rudy Giuliani and Ken Livingstone got together in New York this morning for breakfast and small talk about crime.
What struck me, I mean, I've always seen the films about the horrors of the Bronx and all that. I walk completely without any qualms. I mean,
the Bronx is one of our safer places now.
Battery Park is somewhere Ken Livingstone might feel at home at. This is New York's Identikit Docklands, at the southern tip of Manhattan, in the shadow of the World Trade Center on the banks of the Hudson River. Once the stopping-off point for ocean liners and freighters, it's now 92 acres of reclaimed land in place of piers and wharfs. The look is uncanny, but there is one obvious difference between Canary Wharf and Battery Park. This is primarily about housing, not offices, and eventually it'll be home to 25,000 people. Roberto Bonsignori, Sara Di Toma and their 2-year-old Matteo came here from Rome via Brussels last March. Roberto's a Wall Street lawyer, which probably tells us all we need to know about how much these apartments cost. But the couple believe there's a real attempt to create a community here.
I was expecting a city more difficult to live in, more rough, more dangerous maybe. But I found out that this was not true, particularly here, but in New York City in general, but particularly in Battery Park City.
This is the new mantra of New Yorkers. Theirs is a safe city. But then in Battery, even if there's not a cop on every corner, there is a Parks police officer.
Mayor Giuliani's taken the police force from the size it is in London and increased it by the best part of about 50 or 60%. And I think a lot of Londoners would say that that's what we need to do there.
This is Simon Harris for London Tonight.
Well, Ken tries to learn lessons from New York. A row over his plans for London's police has broken out here. The Association of London Government has attacked his plans to raise council tax across the capital to increase police numbers. But London's top policeman says wherever it comes from, the extra funding is crucial.
All I'm asking for is the acceptance that 3,000 officers are needed for the streets of London. Everybody accepts that. Where the difficulty arises is in the means that we get that money to get extra officers on the street. And we need those officers. Everybody knows that.
The survivors and families of 14 young black people who died in the blaze in New Cross 20 years ago were given a forum to talk about their grief for the first time. And as Marcus Powell reports, emotions are still running high.
Wayne Hayes, terribly burned and still crippled by the New Cross fire of 20 years ago, speaks of the trauma that still haunts him. He wants to know why he was so badly injured and 14 other children died.
Though I've moved on in my life and I have a son and I have a wife, I still feel hurt in my heart for my friends that aren't here. I still feel hurt in my heart for myself.
The blaze, which claimed so many young lives on January the 18th, 1981, was never properly dealt with. First, it was believed to be a racist attack, although a re-investigation by police today suggests it was arson. The fire started with a match in a downstairs room shortly before 6 a.m, points suspicion to adults at the party, but it's still unclear. To compensate for errors of the past, local MP Joan Ruddock arranged a public hearing for the victims, their families and friends.
Today, most of us are convinced that the fire was not the result of a white racist attack. But I believe there was another kind of white crime committed. The failure of the establishment and the wider society to acknowledge the pain and the loss of the black families.
The community wants answers. 2 people at the party still deny it and refuse to speak to the police. The homeowner also refuses to fully cooperate.
I cannot rest until the adults that was in that house is subpoenaed and been made to tell what happened in that house.
This is Marcus Powell for London Tonight.
Meanwhile, a man has died following a fire at a flat in Brixton. The fire brigade were called to the flat in Bob Marley Way at about 7:20 this evening. 4 women escaped the blaze, but crews discovered the body of a man in a corridor. The victim has not been named. A comprehensive school in Hertfordshire has been forced to make drastic cuts in its timetable because of a teacher shortage. St Mary's High School in Cheshunt will have 4-day weeks every other week for its 11, 12 and 13-year-olds. Its 14-year-olds will miss an hour of lessons every week. Haringey Council is interviewing 4 more social services staff over the death of Anna Clumbier. 8-year-old Anna was murdered by her great-aunt and her great-aunt's boyfriend. They were jailed for life on Friday. Anna's social worker, Lisa Arthur-Worray, has been suspended pending an investigation. That's all for now. We're back tomorrow at 6:10 in the morning. Till then, good night.
Carlton Weather, sponsored by amarada.co.uk, suppliers of gas and electricity.
Good evening. Well, I wouldn't go out again tonight if you can possibly help it. It's frosty out there, temperatures dipping to -3, so some icy stretches, perhaps 1 or 2 mist patches too. So a pretty wintry start tomorrow, a frost, but plenty of sunshine, and that's the way it'll stay, I think, throughout the day. That frost slowly lifting, but by afternoon temperatures aren't going to get much higher than 3 degrees typically, perhaps 5 in the middle of London. 5 is only 41 Fahrenheit, still with that chilly easterly breeze. And the outlook remains every bit as cold for the foreseeable future. Temperatures really struggling, turning cloudy too, with some patchy rain or sleet turning up towards the end of the week. That's it from me. Here's tomorrow's summary.
Carlton Weather, sponsored by amarada.co.uk.